Fantasy Football Cat here, and on this show I'm going to do something controversial, something taboo. It's something that no other fantasy football podcast wants to do. That's right, I'm going to be talking about kickers. You know you need them, so here are some drafting strategies on how to get a good kicker. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do kickers really matter? Well, the answer, my friends, is yes. Think about it. How many times have you lost a game during the fantasy football season by 3 or fewer points? And how many times did you lose that game because your kicker missed a field goal, or because his kicker kicked a late field goal, or because the team that your kicker is on decided to go for a 2-point conversion instead of the extra point? It happens all the time, and having a top 5 kicker can be the difference between a winning fantasy football season and a losing one. Let me give you some numbers from last year to illustrate my point. The top kicker last year was Stephen Gostkowski on the Patriots. For the year, he scored 158 points. Now let's say you had Blair Walsh on your team, who the previous year was a top 5 kicker. Well, last year he only scored 121 points because the Vikings were so bad on defense and offense. That's a point differential of 37 points. Now let's say you had Matt Bryant, who was also a good kicker 2 years ago. Well, last year he only scored 111 points. That's a 47-point differential between him and Gostkowski. So here's a list of rules I've compiled that will help you get a good kicker for your fantasy team. Rule number 1. Be the first to take a kicker in your draft and get Stephen Gostkowski. Gostkowski has consistently been a top 5 kicker or the best kicker for pretty much about as long as he's been in the league. And here's the thing. You could waste that pick on another backup running back or a backup wide receiver. But why not have the best kicker available out there? Get it before the other guys in your league get him. If rule number 1 doesn't work out for you, then here's rule number 2. Take a kicker on a team with a great offense and a good defense. Obviously, if they have a great offense, that means a lot of opportunities for your kicker to score points. But if they have a decent defense, then there's less chance that they'll be behind a lot of points and be going for touchdowns versus field goals. There's a third option for getting a good kicker, so here's rule number 3. Take a kicker from a team with a great defense and a good running game. These type of teams try to win close games, and they usually win them off field goals. If they have a great defense, there's a greater chance they get some turnovers and have a short field and can kick a field goal that way. And if they have a good running game, chances are they'll stall out in the red zone and have to go for a field goal. The only problem with this rule is that sometimes you have games where they only score a couple touchdowns and you wind up with 2 points at the end of the game. All right, now we're up to rule number 4. This helps you decide between kickers if you're having trouble deciding who to take in the draft. What you want to do is look to see if the kicker is on a dome team or not. If so, that means you get 8 games at home that are in a dome. You don't have to worry about weather affecting your kicker. The other thing to check is how many missed field goals that kicker had from the previous year. If they had a bunch, then that's not a reliable kicker, and you probably want to stay away from that guy, even if he's on a really good team. Okay, that brings us to the final rule, rule number 5, which I call the Checkup Rule. During the regular season, you want to pay attention to the kicker rankings, see who the top scoring kicker is, and see where your kicker ranks in that list. I usually take a look at that list after week 4 and compare the top kicker on the waiver wire with the kicker that I have. If he scored a lot more points, I'll drop the kicker I have and pick up the guy that's at the top of the list. And usually what happens is there's a team that nobody expected to be good, and so that kicker never got drafted, and then people aren't paying attention because they're too focused on running backs, and so no one's picking up that kicker. So like I said, I usually grab them after week 4 and change out my kicker. Now the other thing you want to do in this rule is you want to take a look at the end of the season right before you go into the playoffs. Check and make sure that your kicker's not going to be playing in a lot of bad weather, and make sure you've still got a good one. That's it for this episode. Now it's nap time. Bye.